Chapter 39. The next week, I sat in the lobby of the office of the Anaheim Times newspaper. I had taken a bus after school. A wild idea had come to me in the middle of the night before. It was a long shot, but fueled by the Sears shareholder meeting and Dashawn's suggestion, I thought I'd give it a try. "And who did you say you are again?" the receptionist asked. "Mia Tang, columnist," I told her with as much confidence as I could muster. "I have some urgent information about the motels in Anaheim that I need to speak to the editor about." The secretary raised a curious eyebrow as she dialed the phone. A few minutes later, she nodded to me. "The news editor will be out in a sec." I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans. 3 minutes later, a man came out and introduced himself as Robert Hayden, news editor. "Why don't you come on back?" he said. So I followed him into the newsroom, which was a mass of reporters sitting at cubicles and desks, writing and talking on the phone and drinking coffee. This is where all the magic happens. I looked around for the reporter Annie, who had returned a feature on the Color Vista last year. I asked Mr. Hayden about her. "Oh, Anna moved to the Bay Area earlier this year to chase a big story." Chase a big story, I repeated in my mind. That just sounded like the coolest thing ever. When we finally got to Mr. Hayden's office, I took a seat across from his messy desk. It was a smaller office than Mr. Wong's and filled with twice as many newspapers. Some were framed and hanging up on a wall, others were scattered on the floor. "So what is this regarding?" Mr. Hayden asked. Quickly, I explained to him what was going on with the Magna. Mr. Hayden listened intently, scribbling notes in his reporter's notebook. "How do you know all this?" he asked. "I manage the front desk of the Calivstar right next door," I explained. Mr. Hayden's eyes did a double take. He held up a finger. "Just a minute." I waited as he punched a few numbers on his phone, then stepped out to talk to one of his colleagues. I figured it was about some urgent news, but when he returned, he said, "Follow me." "Where are we going?" I'd like you to speak to our new editor-in-chief about this," he said. "Unfortunately, I can't authorize the story based on what you're telling me. It's not that I believe you, but we have these journalistic guidelines." He reached for a pamphlet from the document tray in the hallway and handed it to me. It said, "Anaheim Times, journalistic integrity, source credibility, and guidelines on objectivity. But maybe you can convince our editor-in-chief." Nervously clutching the pamphlet, I followed Mr. Hayden to the other side of the newsroom. He pushed open the door to the editor-in-chief's office, and I was happily surprised to find a woman sitting at the desk inside. She had short gray hair and wore reading glasses on a chain, just like Mrs. T. "I'm Catherine Edison, editor-in-chief," she said, getting up and shaking my hand. I smiled. "I'm Mia Tang. Thanks so much for making the time to see me." "No problem," she said, nodding at Mr. Hayden. "I'll leave it to you, boss," he said, shutting the door right behind him. Mrs. Edison turned back to me. "Rob said that you and your family manage a hotel over on Coast," she asked. "And you're worried about the health and safety of our motels?" "Yes," I said. I dug in my bag and got a copy of Annie's article. "You guys ran a feature story on us last year." "Oh yes, I remember this piece," she said, smiling. "And how's the Calivista doing?" I shook my head and started telling her about the Magna and the TV commercials. Catherine peered into my eyes, studying me as I talked. "And the ads are lying. They say the Magna is a lot cleaner than our local motels. But I've met some people who've worked at the Magna next door to our motel, and they say they have to skip cleaning things in order to save time and money." "That's very interesting," she said. "But we can't just write that. We have to prove it. How do you propose we go about proving such a claim?" I took a deep breath. Well, I was actually thinking the health department could check to see which model was actually cleaner. I knew it sounded crazy, but I stayed up all night thinking about this. We need to accept their cleanliness challenge and prove who was actually cleaner. And if the media happened to be there when the inspection was happening, well, then that would be even better than advertising. Catherine Edison took off her glasses, shocked. "You want us to call the health department on your motel?" she asked. "I'll call the health department. You guys need to be there." "I have to hand it to you. That's bold," she said. She scribbled a few notes onto her pad of paper and pointed her glasses at me. "Has Rob given you our guide to journalistic integrity and objectivity? You have to promise not to do anything different with your motel for the inspection. You can't secretly dust everything to perfection." I held up the pamphlet and promised to study it. "You have my word. As a columnist, we wouldn't do anything differently." "How old are you again?" 12, I said, then quickly added, "But I've been writing for a long time." "Which newspaper do you write for?" she asked. "China Kids Gazette." I took some of my columns out of my backpack. She sat back and put on her reading glasses. The whole time she read my articles, my heart pitter-patted in my chest. It got so quiet that I could hear the ceiling fan spin. I really like this one, Mrs. Addison said, at last pointing to my latest column on Anaheim changing, which I hadn't even faxed to my editor yet. I looked up, surprised. She read aloud. I used to hate the thrift store, hated wearing flower pants that look so different from everyone else's blue jeans. And smiled. I know exactly what you mean. My mom wanted me to wear these long, colorful skirts when all I wanted were jeans. Me too, I said. So when is this being published in the Gazette? I haven't said it to them yet, I said. Well, I'd love the chance to consider it when it's ready, she said, handing it back to me. Was she offering to publish it? Of course, I can totally make it more dramatic, I told her. Miss Addison smiled. No, that's not what I meant. In fact, if you read our pamphlet, you'll see we're strongly committed to reporting just the news, not embellishing the news. Oh, we don't need more drama. We need more analysis, more research. Our opinion pieces tend to be around 700 to 800 words. Yours is only 300. I stared at her, wondering how she knew that without counting. It must be a thread thing, like how my dad always exactly knew how many towels were in a pile just by looking at the stack. I can make it longer, I offered. I could go to the library and research other businesses in Anaheim and talk to people who used to work there. Great, she said. If you can flesh it out, send it to me and let us know when you call the health department. She reached over and gave me her card. So, you'll do it? You'll cover the story? I asked. That's up to the reporter, but I'm happy to send someone over, she said. Yes! As she walked me to the door, I looked down and noticed she was wearing a bright yellow skirt. It had little blue pencils on it and it ran all the way down to the floor. Miss Addison followed my eyes and chuckled. Like my skirt? I nodded. I did, a lot. But what about all the stuff she said about her mom? I guess I eventually stopped caring what everybody else thought, she said, reading my mind. I grinned all the way home, armed with the knowledge and excitement that now 2 editors-in-chief were interested in my work, and I had a solid plan for getting back at the Magna. I couldn't wait to tell Dashaun. Yet again, Lupe was right. You can't win if you don't play.